Welcome to True Health Tuesday, and the truth will set you free. And it's tough to get truth nowadays, but luckily we're going to go over a couple of things. Now, has anyone ever heard of high blood pressure, high cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, or bowel disorders? Now, this is rampant. When you're looking at a population, you're looking at the sickest animal population on the planet. Now, what's a trip is you're looking at 54% of our kids have a chronic illness that they will never recover from. 60% of adults have a chronic illness they will never recover from. Now, that is an end of species thing. You're looking at sperm counts decline. So it looks like we're not actually designed to live on the planet. Do you know why? Because we're separating ourselves from how we're actually designed. So we're going to try and bring common. Well, I can't say common sense because it's not that common anymore. Okay? It's like practical thinking. It's critical thinking. And none of this stuff is taught because of the way the system is laid out. So, and the second half is how we're actually going to take back our world. Okay, that's why it's censored. If you're on the Dr. B VIP and it's running correctly, you won't be interrupted in this. Okay, it'll be right there and it'll be recorded that you can go back and listen to it. And really appreciate the support because Victor doesn't work for free. And Extreme Health Academy, this is neat. It's also going to be on there, but it's like they've got forums. I mean, I do a webinar with them at least once a month, and it's about 2.5 hours where I'm answering questions. It's supposed to be an hour, but it's so interesting. You see people from all around the world that have had different conditions that recover, and it's really, really cool. So how many animal species on the planet have a declining birth rate, a declining population? 54% of their little animal offspring have a chronic critical illness. Okay, 60% of the adults of the water buffalo herd, or the hippo herd, or the caribou, okay, 60% of that herd has a chronic critical illness. Would you think that's a healthy herd or a sick herd? So what would you do with a herd like that? Would you want to give them different food or medications? Because obviously they're not living in harmony with their environment. You know, so what's wrong with the herd that's that sick? How would we fix that herd of caribou? Would we, oh no, stop bringing up we're going to look for toxins. Jesus, there's somebody in every crowd. No, and it's not genetic either. Caribou have been living that way for thousands and thousands of years. So wouldn't you look for the toxicity in their diet? Like what's poisoning them? Or has their environment changed at all? Because their metabolism hasn't changed. Caribou have been around for 100,000 years. Okay, so what's the difference? Let's look at human beings that way. See, we have completely separated ourselves from how our bodies are designed to live here. You have Paleolithic metabolism. Your metabolism hasn't changed in about 60,000 years, but your activity level has. And then you've been taught a lie. A lie. What's the number one cause of high blood pressure officially if you go to the greatest doctors in the world? Well, at least the most popular. It's idiopathic. It's unknown. Really? So what animal on the planet can't regulate their own blood pressure? What's wrong? What's broken in human beings? You're going to say genetic? Okay, really, that's the fallback of stupid people. Okay, we don't know. It must be genetic. It runs in your family. No. Diet, poor diet. Okay, high stress run in families. Okay, environmental run in the families. And plus two, if you have a cold and you get an antibiotic every time you take it, and your parents do that, that's going to destroy your gut flora and weaken your immune system. So I don't want to say stupid, but ignorance runs in families. Okay, you also have families that have nothing but organic, they work hard, they exercise, they sleep right, they deal with stress correctively, they have good spiritual health, they have good emotional health, good social environments. I know. They're rare, but they do exist. They're called humans. Okay, so when you look at this, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, what is cholesterol? What's the function of it? Okay, and you got some guy in the back saying, well, it clogs arteries. Really? Why doesn't it clog veins? Because that's where we're getting the blood out. Okay, what's the function of cholesterol? And that's what I'll ask people. No, high cholesterol runs in my family. Really? What's the function of it? Well, it's 50% of the overall weight of the brain, and it's the number one ingredient, the raw materials for hormone production. So if you have inflammation, you have anxiety, stress, you want to adapt, you want to thrive, you need cholesterol in order to produce estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, cortisol, adrenaline, all the hormones that you make, every glucocorticosteroid, mineralocorticosteroid, and sex hormone. So wouldn't it be curious? I mean, wouldn't you want to see like what stressors the people with high cholesterol have? But you can't do that, okay? Because you don't have that much time and you're a doctor that's trained. You have a symptom, you have to give a therapy, okay? And that therapy is always a chemical to alter their physiology. Can you imagine doing that to a herd of caribou? Okay, we've got a third of them have high cholesterol, so we're going to give them a drug to lower it? Again, it doesn't make any sense. Type 2 diabetes, bowel disorders. Okay, we're going to get into these, okay, but not into the facts and data because we cover that. We've done a number of videos, okay, on high blood pressure, a number on high cholesterol, a number on type 2 diabetes. I mean, over the last, 15 years, it's amazing. So what do we ask when somebody comes in? And they'll come in with like headaches or migraine or anxiety or back pain, neck pain. And I'll go, God, what the hell are you going to do? A chiropractor for back pain? I don't do that shit. Okay. We're an autonomic nervous system doctor. So people who come in with high blood pressure, high cholesterol, things like that. But I'll say, how many bowel movements a day do you get? Okay. Why? Because I'm looking for that autonomic imbalance. We have an automatic nervous system. One part keeps you alive under stress, and that's called the sympathetic or fight or flight. The other part regenerates tissue, and that's called the parasympathetic, rest, digest, and repair. So your body can be in a stress state or a growth and repair state. And we need this. What's interesting is most animal species on the planet have that same system. They're going to run away from a tiger. They don't want to run away with a bunch of blood going to the digestion. That blood has to be funneled from digestion to the arms and legs to run away. And what happens if you're in traffic? You have a crappy job, okay? Or you listen to CNN. Okay, so you human beings are not designed to live on the planet. Stay away from your neighbor. Cover your face and breathe your own waste in. For God's sake, get a face diaper on that person. Oh, never mind. You're actually designed to live here. Okay, it turns out that you can breathe air and it's good for you. Okay, but think of this. Okay, so if somebody is in that state of stress, they have to get away from the tiger. So blood has to go from digestion. So what happens with people who have chronic stress? They're going to have slow gastric motility. Okay, one poop a day if you're lucky. Okay, and then I'll get people with dark circles under their eyes, which means low mineral absorption. And I'll see big old bunion formation, which means they've a compromised nerve supply to the feet. And they'll say, yeah, man, how many bowel movements a day do you get? And they'll tell me like 2. Okay, that's amazing. Your diet must be huge. Yeah, I'm taking that Metamucil. Boy, before that, it was 1 if I was lucky. Okay, cool. You're getting fibers to help it out, but you're not fixing the stress. Okay, now sleep patterns. How often and how does a person sleep? We've got like 4 videos on sleep, but look at how the system works. You go through 90-minute cycles called rapid eye movement, and this is when your body is regenerating. It's regenerating. It's amazing. But when you complete that 90-minute cycles, your eyes open and your ears get more sensitive. That's because when you've completed that cycle, your body has to wake up to make sure the cave is safe. So if there's light bright enough to where you can see your hand in front of your face, bam, the fight or flight system kicks up and you got to roll over because you're uncomfortable or get up to pee. Have you ever wondered why, why do I always get up at 1:30 to pee? There must be a dog or a trash can there going off or something. No, you've completed a 90-minute cycle. You go to bed at the same time and that's it. So you start to think, wow, sleep pattern interruptions. Sleep is when your body regenerates. If you can't regenerate, guess what you get? You get poor tissue production. What is poor tissue production? That's wrinkles. That's joint pain. That's the body breaking down. That means you're not able to regenerate. Does that make sense? Now, attention deficit disorder. Do you know how many kids we get in here with this? Okay, it's all the time. And if you saw the kids, I mean, God bless these kids. Can you imagine being like 11, 12, 13? You've been to 5 different doctors and everyone is giving you a different opinion. Then they give you a drug that makes you feel stoned or excited. And they're telling you you have a defective brain. Okay, and so here's this little kid sitting on a bench, and this has happened, 100 times. And the parents act like they're not even there. And they'll go, he never listens to me. He never listens to me. He never helps out on the house. And, his attention deficit runs in his family. His father has it too. And I'm going, buddy. And he's there, looking at his cell phone or something. Typically, they've got a hat, earplugs in, and everything else. So you better take those out because I'm going to tell you stuff on how to get your brain to work better. They pull it out, and he's still looking at the ground. And I'll say, do you have, does your mom ever force you to play video games? Yeah, he's going to smile just like that. Okay. Video games? Force? No. Does your mom ever say, get your butt in your room and play more video games? Okay. And the kid's going to start to smile and say, no. Okay. So how long can you focus and pay attention to play video games? Hours. Oh, so you don't have any problem paying attention. Okay. So there's no deficit of attention. That doesn't exist. It's just the desire to focus what you're, interested in. So I'm going to show you how to develop that laser beam focus that you have with video games into whatever you want. So this way it'll stop people bitching at you. Okay, and I'm the first doctor that had ever told him, I'm going to get people to stop bitching at you. It's like, oh my God, this guy speaks English. Okay, yeah, because that's frontal lobe. The frontal lobe is impulse control. Impulse control is what these guys are missing, but that frontal lobe is programmable from the cerebellum. And any type of abnormal motion or trauma can trigger that. Now, what do you think these kids have had in the past? Traumatic birth, mom had Pitocin, fully vaccinated, ear infections, their head was slammed up against that cervix before they were even ready. So the kid had antibiotics and cervical trauma before they came into the world and then were given a hepatitis B vaccination at 12 hours. And then we're given a polysorbate 80 shot. It's called a vitamin K shot. Okay, in their foot, even though their mom's not iron deficient. I mean, can you see that stuff? It just doesn't make sense. Anxiety? Okay, they're talking about brain chemistry on anxiety. Is there really a difference? No, when you look at severe schizophrenics and people that don't have that, they have the same brain chemistry. But the gut brain is different. It's called the enteric brain. So how many people are getting poisoned in the gut having an altered neurotransmitter production? Because that's where the brain communicates. Knowing that cerebellum is going to be controlled by the body. So any alterations or any physical trauma is going to keep that cerebellum in a constant abnormal state. So how about looking at the physical, chemical, emotional stressors? Does that make sense? So when people come in with these conditions, I say, no, you don't have that. You do have stress. Okay, and so let's find out the source of it, because there's only 3 of them. There's physical, chemical, and emotional. The medical one is missing. This is theirs. Any stimulus, physical, mental, or emotional. I don't know how they're going to separate mental and emotional, but I would say physical, chemical, and emotional. Can you imagine a medical world saying chemical? Well, gee, doc, what does this aspirin do? Isn't that a chemical stressor? Because it says if I take 5 of them, it'll blow up my kidneys. And the Tylenol says it's deadly to the liver, and there's not really a therapeutic dose for that. Okay, so you ain't going to see chemical stressors in there. This is what blood looks like when it's unhealthy. Okay, when a person's in stress. So think of this. You got red blood cells that are supposed to be beautiful and separate and holding oxygen. They're like 2 Frisbees glued together, which is a beautiful surface area, carry nutrients, they balance pH, it's vital to your immune system. But when you're under stress, you can't break those proteins to amino acids, so the cells start to get sticky. When you're under chronic stress, they start to get sticky. But do you think that can have the same surface area? No, it can't hold the same oxygen. Okay, so what do you think has to happen to blood pressure in order to get the same blood through a smaller opening? Even though it's clumped together, it has to go up. So high blood pressure is an adaptation, not a disease. It's an adaptation to stress. Now, you can do a live blood cell analysis and see this. How many doctors are doing live blood cell analysis? I even had a relative, a medical doctor for 35 years, and I said, hey, doc, have you ever checked to see if there's a sympathetic dominant state in your patients before you give them high blood pressure? And he said, well, we already know the cause. It's idiopathic. Which means they don't know. It's mind-bogglingly stupid. Okay, so let's look at this. How do you identify the stress? If this is accurate, if high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, attention deficit disorder, and most bowel disorders, some are direct trauma or poisoning. Okay, but you don't see bowel disorders in the animal kingdom. Why? If they're eating normal food that they've eaten for centuries. Okay, does that make sense? Remember, I'm bringing people from a completely distorted mental and emotional perspective because you get educated by the TV. Okay? Right now, you might think there's a really bad flu going on. So how do you identify them? First, physical stressors. You can do digital x-ray. You can do full body thermography. Heart rate variability that measures the stressors, okay, to see if you're in a sympathetic or parasympathetic dominant or a balanced autonomic nervous system. I see those occasionally. What are the signs? If you have bunion formation, that means that the big toe is going towards the other one. That means compromised nerve supply to the feet. We talked about how an abnormal gait is going to cause that to cause the pelvis to be unstable, and that houses half of the autonomic nervous system. Chemical stressors. Again, you can see that on thermography. You can see that on a live blood cell analysis. And then you can also see pink skin. I mean, normal skin, you can touch it and it doesn't turn white. Check out the local teenager, okay? The one that's fully vaccinated, that has a toxic deficient diet, that's getting the fast food every day, that's loaded with glyphosates. Their gut is inflamed. That means histamines are released everywhere. And I'll tell that to a kid and I'll say, well, yeah, you got histamines released, just touch yourself. See that? I said, and I'll go over and I'll say, your skin's not supposed to turn white when I touch you. Okay, that's histamines. That means there's some kind of tissue damage somewhere. Does that make sense? That's abnormal? Emotional. What are emotional stressors? How do they show up? You're going to look at the high blood pressure, high cholesterol. Those are all signs of emotional stress that you're adapting to it. And this is frontal lobe dysfunction or nutrient deficiency or gut-brain connection. Remember the gut-brain connection, that's huge. So what about people that have had chronic antibiotics? You had a family friend who's, literally she's a physician's assistant. And she had massive anxiety after a urinary tract infection. And she calls up and, said, I just don't know what to do. And I said, well, because a friend of a friend talked to me and said, hey, Bergman, what do you think it is? Well, the antibiotics they gave her destroyed the gut flora, and it says anxiety and stress on the side of the bottle. So I'm guessing it was probably the antibiotics. Okay. Does that make sense? And now Fred Barge, who was a brilliant chiropractor, amazing philosopher, he was one of the few doctors that I've ever heard quote himself. So I thought I'd do it, but this is honor my brother, Fred Barge. Drugging symptoms without addressing the cause causes chronic illness. Okay, I know I said cause twice, so I probably could get more eloquent. I should pick up something else. So let's look at this. High blood pressure. Does she really have high blood pressure or stress? Does she really have type 2 diabetes or is she being poisoned? Knowing that high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes are going to cause inflammatory and stress responses in the body, causing the adrenal glands to produce cortisol, do you think she's going to have normal thyroid function or low thyroid function? I know. It's not that hard. And we have the sign there. That green spot is where everybody should be. She's in the low functioning sympathetic side. So she's in an extremely stressed state. So, and it should be a score of 95. She had a score of 46. How about looking for the cause? How about critical thinking? High blood pressure. Harrison's textbook, medical textbook. Now remember, the pharmaceutical industry runs the medical schools. Okay, back in the 30s and 40s, there were still some really good scientists in there. But since the pharmaceutical industry took over, it's hard to find good hard data, because what they're doing now is to try and prove this drug is better than that drug. The first principle of therapy of hypertension is to know when to treat and when not to. Huh? Does that mean you might have different blood pressures for different people? You mean the 12-year-old gymnast isn't going to be 120/80 and the 400-pound cigar store owner isn't going to be 120/80? That it might vary, and it might depend during the day whether you're dehydrated or not dehydrated, or if you slept really good or you didn't sleep really good, or you have healthy blood or not healthy blood, or if you have a current stressor. Like when we have people that come in and they say, yeah, my relative got that. Okay, and 2 weeks later, that's happened 4 times last week. Okay, so this is mind-boggling. Okay, that will raise the stressor. Whatever form of therapy selected, it must not be forgotten that the physician who treats hypertension is treating the patient as a whole rather than separate manifestations of a disease. Brilliant. So when somebody comes in with a thyroid issue, do you think they have a thyroid issue? Is the thyroid separate from the body? Is it just sitting on a table and say, damn that thyroid? Bastard runs in my family. Okay. No. Okay, it's connected. Your body is responding correctly based on the stimuli. It's just doctors are not doing critical thinking to look at the stimuli. God, that makes sense. I mean, why would you give a diuretic to somebody which causes the kidney? It's also called the water pill. Okay, yeah. Water comes in jars or cups, not pill form. No, water pill is a diuretic. It causes your kidneys to increase their function, so you lose potassium and you lose water, and you're already dehydrated because that made the blood pressure go up. So it's stupid on top of dumb. Okay. Sorry, I won't say stupid again. Okay, it's not looking at the whole person, okay, and not critical thinking as to why the blood pressure may increase. Politically correct now? Okay, thank you. A woman has tolerated her diastolic pressure of 120. Now that's the second number. So we're looking at 160/120 or 180/120. Okay? Who has tolerated diastolic pressure of 120 for 10 years without symptoms or deterioration does not need immediate treatment for hypertension. Marked elevations in systolic with little or no rise in diastolic does not constitute an indication for depressor therapy. This is particularly true in elderly or arteriosclerotic patients, even though the diastolic pressure may also be elevated. The reason in elderly is the older we get, the less flexible our arteries become. And that's the key. It's called pulse pressure, the difference between the high number and the low number. High number is the systolic, supposed to be the output of the heart. It's not really, but that's what everybody says. Diastolic is supposed to be the overall resting pressure of the body. It's not really, but that's what everybody says it is. Okay, so it should be about 40. Okay, so 120/80 is 40, 160/120 is 40. So we're looking at the pulse pressure. Now what happens is, if it's greater than that, greater than 40, it means your blood is not efficient at doing its job. But also, as you age, your arteries, this is not the main pump, the heart. Your arteries constrict and dilate. Okay, and as they constrict and dilate, they start to lose flexibility. So the difference, or the pulse pressure in older people, tends to get larger because the arteries get less flexible. Just think of a wrestler running up against the ropes, uses that spring to bounce over and gives the arm bar to, Jane Austen or whoever. My son used to watch wrestling. I don't. Okay, well, somebody, okay. And I love this, Paul Roche, okay, American Institute of Stress. High blood pressure, it's simply an elevated blood pressure reading on some measuring device that have many different causes that helps to explain why we have 100 drugs to treat high blood pressure. Now, what happens if you don't look at the cause and you just treat high blood pressure? You give a drug to lower it. What happens in your body? Okay, So you take that caribou who is stressed out. Do they have a good diet or poor diet? Stressed out, man. They're eating right next to the oil pipeline that's leaking, okay? They got high blood pressure. They're toxic, okay? So their blood pressure is nice and mellow or high? High. Okay, so now you go up and you feed that caribou some diuretics or ACE inhibitors. Okay, that's going to bring the blood pressure down because it actually works. Holy moly, the caribou needed it up this high. So what's going to happen? The arteries are going to constrict, like putting your thumb over a hose. So it's going to elevate the blood pressure. You're right. Let's not torture caribous. Okay, let's look at human beings. So you got a human being whose blood pressure is this high. What's that number? It's going to be different on everyone. If they're hydrated, it's going to be here. If they're dehydrated, it's going to be here. If they slept good, it's going to be here. If they slept poorly, it's going to be here. If they're pissed off and they watch CNN, it's going to be here. Okay? If they're concerned with Louisiana just dropping the mask restriction, it's going to be right here. They're going to say, dude, cool. Okay? Okay? So, but whatever it is, if you take a drug, it works. It lowers it. Holy moly. So that means all the arteries got to constrict. That's why, according to the University of Alabama, so risk of stroke went up a third for every blood pressure you take. Now, if you're taking 3 blood pressure drugs, why? Because you go in there, you take a drug, it goes back up, you take another drug, your body adapts, you take another drug, your body adapts. Holy moly, risk of stroke increases 248% if you're taking a drug to lower blood pressure. Why? Because you're not addressing the cause. You're practicing rote medicine. You're not looking at critical thinking. You fire the doctor that does that. And if you say, doc, what causes high blood pressure? If they say, man, 3 stressors, physical, chemical, emotional stress, we're going to do some detailed analysis to find those stressors. Because if I give you a substance to lower your blood pressure without addressing the stressor, you're in deep shit trouble. Cholesterol. Okay, what's cholesterol? Well, it's the precursor to every stress hormone you make. It's the precursor to glucocorticosteroids, mineralocorticosteroids, sex hormones, and it's 50% of the overweight of your brain. There is only one type of cholesterol, not good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. Anybody that says that, they are not studied. They are what's called ignorant. They need to go back and learn it. There are different protein carriers. One is a low-density lipoprotein, which is a bunch of different forms of that. That brings cholesterol to the site of injury. The other is a high-density lipoprotein, and that carries the cholesterol back to the liver for storage. So cholesterol, there's only one type, but it's looking at the carriers that tells you if there's an acute inflammatory response or that the body is not in a stress state. And that's why they're saying good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. Your ratio is really good. No, it's not. Okay, you just have to not have an acute trauma. Okay, so cholesterol goes up under physical, chemical, or emotional stress or tissue damage. Bottom line, that's it. Now, if you take a drug, according to Nature Medicine, December 2000, it suppresses your immune system. Ooh, isn't that something? Lipitor, Mevacor, Pravachol have been found to suppress certain immune system cells known as helper T cells. Killer T cells, suppressor T cells. Helper T cells suppressed by the statin drug act at recognizing foreign pathogens, then activating production of the proper T cells and B cell response. Interesting. It weakens your immune system. Now, according to the CDC, the people that are dying of this certain virus that we can't mention because the censors would get to us, they had 3.8 comorbid conditions. Do you think anyone in that group, okay, may have had some blood pressure drugs because they were possibly under stress? And knowing that that increases their risk of stroke or blood clots, okay, because, you know, that's what they're dying of, it seems like, at least after the, okay. But what if they're taking cholesterol medications? Would that weaken or strengthen their immune system? Interesting, it weakens it. Plus, it decreases heart function according to clinical cardiology. It increases plaquing in the arteries. Turns out that if you have heart failure, is that good, healthy tissue or weakened tissue? Weakened tissue is what has to go up. Cholesterol has to go up to tissue repair. So there's a 36% increase in death for every 1 point of cholesterol decrease. 36% increase in death if you lower cholesterol. Why? Because cholesterol is important. And then cholesterol drugs, okay, stimulate hardening of the arteries and heart failure. Okay, heart failure. Again, let's use the caribou analogy. If a caribou has high cholesterol, would we give them cholesterol-lowering drugs? Okay, are you an animal species on the planet? Go like this. Yes, we are an animal species. Do we have certain parameters we have to live within? Our ego says we're not animal species, but we have a symbiotic relationship with everything. I mean, all you got to do is just do a live blood cell analysis. I don't charge my patients at all for that. Okay, but to give them the insight that there's an ecosystem in the smallest drop of blood. It's the most beautiful, amazing thing you ever saw. But it's also indicating of Parkinson's, MS, neurological disorders, chronic diseases. You can see there, okay, before they start to manifest. And even if they are manifesting, you can see some of the causative factors. You can see nutrient deficiencies. Turns out cholesterol drugs can increase diabetes. Why? Because it puts you in a greater stress. If you're in a greater stress, guess what? That liver has to start to really glycogen down to glucose. Plus, if your cholesterol is going up, that's tissue damage or stress. Okay, that's going to elevate it. Okay, look at this. Sympathetic dominant patient. Numb hands. Do you think, knowing that the nerves come out of the neck, possibly a neck issue? Anxiety. Does that mean a neck issue causing the cerebellum to not function correctly, leading to the frontal lobe dysfunction? Fatigue and high blood pressure. Oh my God, that makes sense, doesn't it? Okay. Diabetes, type 2. Type 2, a third of all Americans, that's 100 million people are going to end up with this. There's going to be a lot more because of fast food. Okay. Fast food has remained open while the restaurants remain closed. But don't worry, in California, one of the stupider states, they've been able to create indoor spaces outside, so they have these enclosed tents with heaters outside, okay, even though the restaurant is really nice inside. But our emperor says that that's appropriate, even though there's no science to back it up. Okay, we're going to fire him. Okay, a third of all Americans, 100 million people, are going to develop this. 95% are type 2 diabetics. Interesting. Type 1 requires insulin, and that's actually damage to the pancreas. Typically, it's going to be vaccines, a lot of data on that, also medications and toxicities in the environment. Type 3 is both 1 and 2. That's going to be Alzheimer's, and we're looking at a 1-in-1 ratio of that in our country. Brain damage is rampant. Okay, now, if you take a drug, now remember the blood pressure analogy? Your blood pressure is going to be here, whatever the heck that is. Okay, if you lower it, it's got to get back up. Guess what happens? Blood sugar is the same. The blood sugar drugs actually lower blood sugar. They work. Okay, but insulin levels remain high. So if you're lowering blood sugar, but you're not, the insulin levels are high, that's what actually does the damage. So you lower blood glucose 9%, you increase death by 19%. That's not good. Okay, you could read a book, okay, and find the solution. Gabriel Cousins, look at the movie, Simply Raw. It's so simple. Okay, I mean, we had, I remember this was like 3-4 years ago. 26-year-old kid comes in, type 2 diabetes. And we talked about nutrition, I talked about sleep and everything else, and she says, your diet recommendation is different than what my doctor who's managing my diabetes gave me. And I said, yeah, I don't want to manage it, I just want to fix it. Okay? Really? Okay, so Dr. Bernstein's, Joel Furman. I mean, it's literally simple. Within a month, the blood sugar normalizes. But do you have to fix the sleep patterns? Do you have to fix the stressors? Absolutely. Bowel disorders. This is our future. This is our future. This is our future, our children. And yes, they are being psychologically damaged because they're not at risk of this disease. Okay, that's going out there. Okay, and we're masking them, putting face diapers on them, which is causing severe psychological harm. We're telling them that they can't play in schools, which is criminal. Okay, but the bowel disorders are amazing. I'm seeing inflammatory bowel diseases that used to be in 40, 50-year-old people that have had horrible diets in 5, 6, 7, and 8-year-old children. Now, who here in this group thinks that it's genetic? Okay, good. Nobody. Good, because that'd beat you up. Okay, who thinks they're being poisoned? Good. I'm in total agreement. Can you imagine bowel disorders in the caribou herd? No, it's not genetic. It's not bad luck or bad genes. These kids are being poisoned. Typically, the mom had Pitocin or an epidural, couldn't let down the milk, then they were given genetically modified soy, which had glyphosates in it. I mean, look at this. Glyphosates, a real impact on food, feed, or the environment. It's now considered a carcinogen, but it's still in all the food. You're looking at herbicides, insecticides, sterile pollen, cotton, soy. Check out king corn. You'll be amazed with it. It's an endocrine disrupting chemical, this glyphosates. Okay, and what's it involved in? Male and female reproductive, breast cancer, development, prostate cancer, endocrine neurocancer, thyroid metabolism, obesity, cardiovascular, endocrinology. And this was legalized, okay, approved by the FDA, has generally recognized as safe, okay? Now I know they have angels that have approved this emergency use authorization medical procedure that's forced on everyone, but this time they screwed up. Thank God somebody got that sarcasm. Okay, aspirin. Ineffective and dangerous. Okay, why? Because the most obvious striking results are the tremendous rise of aspirin users, gastrointestinal complications, 450%. They did the aspirin a day. I mean, we're talking 13 countries, 100,000 people involved in this. And they found, yes, sure enough, coronary cardiovascular issues decreased about 10 to 15%. Gastrointestinal bleeding and strokes went through the roof. Okay, so is there another chemical that you could give that caribou herd to help their blood? Don't you say water. Don't you say omega-3s. Don't you say vitamin C. Stop that. You'll get us censored. You can't say vitamins are good for you. I'm sorry. Oh, great God, censor. Okay? They didn't mean it. Now, 128,000 people a year die from the right drug at the right time in the right diagnosis. Is anybody suffering from drug deficiency? Okay, I was run over by a car, broken legs, cracked sternum, or fractured sternum, fractured skull, and I was not suffering from morphine deficiency, but damn, it was good. I know you had a log sticking out of your leg. Damn, it was good. But you're not going to take it long term. So medications for short-term use, it makes sense. So all of this stuff, how do we get out of this psychotic world where people are diagnosing you with a disease when really it's an adaptation for stress? Here are 3 of the solutions. For physical stress, find the problem. Wow. That means you're taking an x-ray, you're taking a scan, a nerve scan, heart rate variability, rolling thermosurface electromyography, something. Find an objective analysis to find the problem. You do not stretch or massage without finding the problem. You find out the friggin' problem. And then you do some therapies that are designed, let me see, to treat symptoms or fix the problem. Fix the problem! And then you do the post-test to find out that you fixed it. I know. God. This is what you do with your mechanic. You bring it into them. They fix it. They show you the parts they replaced. And then you drive it. If it breaks again, you take it back to them. Okay? This way you find it, you fix it. Emotional stress. You can reprogram. Emotions are chemicals secreted by how the brain perceives the environment. Neurolinguistic programming, eye movement desensitization response, emotional freedom technique. There's lots of techniques to reprogram the subconscious. It's done through repetition. You can do it. If you've had a chronic injury or illness, you can do it. It just takes repetition. If you have no goals in life, you're in a complete stress state, look at our 100 things to do, be, or become. Amazing. It works 100% of the time. Goals, look at sleep, change your sleep pattern. This is vital for emotional health. When you're looking at exercise, walking, symmetrical exercises helps that emotional technique, or helps the brain because that gives symmetrical stimulation to the cerebellum. Does that make sense? There is a solution. Increasing omega-3 is helping your gut flora. There's so many solutions, but you got to find the problem first, and you can reprogram it. And then chemical stressors. What kind of chemical stressors are we getting? Oh, I know. The average 18-year-old, 17 doses of 17 different vaccines, 72 doses. Yes, my dear, you and me had one. Smallpox. I still got the scar. Well, actually, I had smallpox and polio. Of course, the polio shot I got, they found out 20 years later, caused an increase in brain cancer. Boy, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, and also non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Okay, wow, it took them 20 years to find out that there was a negative. Turns out that we're designed to live in this environment, and if we strengthen our body's immune system, that we're able to thrive in this environment. If we take a chemical to alter our adaptation, things don't work out that well. So what do you do for fun? Find your joy, okay? And in this psychotic world, hang with people that have like mind, okay? If you want to sit in your car with a face diaper on and Purell yourself to death and stay the hell from everyone, okay, God bless you, but you're not going to survive. You were designed to live on this planet, okay? Have some fun, okay? Educate yourself, okay? This stress time now, because you're not in control of your life, the next half of this, I'm going to show you how to get control of your life and get control where they're not going to take it away from you. When I say they, you're going to find out in a couple of seconds. Okay, what do you do for fun? Do you eat for fun? No, eating stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, so people will eat for stress. How about eating for life? Do you remember back in the old days when you would get a plate of food, you would pray over it to thank God? Plus, the only reason you're alive is you're able to take that hunk of organic free-range chicken or fish. Okay, for me, I'd get a can of wild-caught sardines. Oh God, I love that. Okay, and then you get some lettuce. Okay, and you mix that all up, and you get some oranges and some nuts. Put that in a big bowl. Your body is going to, and you pray over that because this is going to become you. So you're going to get those protein, fats, and carbohydrates, and you're going to build eye tissue and blood tissue and bone out of it and strength and neurotransmitters. This is what your food is. Okay, I know the Carl's Jr. commercials were sexy as all hell, but you can't build good food out, you can't build good bodies out of that. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah, if you're taking drugs, if you're taking alcohol, do it with moderation and not excess. Okay? But if you're doing it to cover up pain, the outcome is not going to be good. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, identify the problem and fix it. Now, that is the first part of our talk. The second part, I don't think the sensors will go along. In fact, there's a shitload of stuff in that first part that hopefully we're still flying under the radar. They've already demonetized, they've shadow banned, they've done all the other stuff. So we're going to stop the first part here. The next part, I'm going to talk about how to get the freedom back. You can sign up for the Dr. B VIP. It'll be on there. It's going to be on, we're stopping the Facebook too, right? Yeah. So Facebook, YouTube, all of that stuff's going to be shut down right now. But get to the Dr. B VIP site or get to the American States Assembly and sovereignnationals.us. We're going to change this world.